The revised series breaks from the original volume in a number of different ways. First of all of the commentaries have been updated with the most recent scholarship, and all the contributions that were included from the past have been thoroughly rethought, and some of them have been almost totally revised. I'm thinking here of Grogan on Isaiah. That's a thorough revision, almost a totally new commentary, and all the other ones are significantly different. But then we have a number of new contributions by outstanding scholars of the present generation, and those are, of course, totally up to date, and they are done by the top evangelical scholars of today. We were very fortunate to get a lot of, every one of the new contributors are excellent, and I'm thinking of Leviticus by Rick Hess. Rick Hess is one of the leading evangelical scholars, and he's particularly insightful in terms of the book of Leviticus, both in terms of the theology of the book, but also explaining all the rituals of the book in a way that's meaningful to a Christian. And ministers, I think, will really find that commentary exciting as they seek to bring the relevance of a book like Leviticus to their congregation. Think too of Jeremiah, written by Michael Brown, who's a Jewish Christian who brings a wealth of information from early Jewish interpreters, as well as modern scholars, to an understanding of Jeremiah. Andrew Dearman, working on the book of Daniel, is an exceptional commentary, and the list could go on and on and on. Mark Boda, who is one of the really up-and-coming younger scholars, has done the book of Judges, and so it's a very exciting group of scholars, both of the previous generation updating theirs. I think too of Ed Yamauchi, who redid Ezra Nehemiah, and again bringing a wealth of his long study of those books in the Persian period. And even though he did the first edition, again, it's a total reworking of that earlier commentary. There are a lot of commentary series out there, a lot of good commentary series out there, but what the EBC does extremely well is give a good, profound exposition of the text, but then in separate notes we'll look at some of the more detailed, say, grammatical issues. And so for those who want to get a good sense of the text, they can read the expository sections, which are very clearly written and get to the point of the passage, get to the message of the passage, and then they can look at the serious scholarship that lies behind it by checking out the notes as well. The EBC is also, thoroughly evangelical in its approach. It's a concise discussion, though you get, as I say, a very profound exposition. It's a lot more concise, and so for busy pastors who don't want to be bogged down in long discussions of sort of the minutiae of the text, as some commentary series do, and that has its place, of course. I write those kind of commentaries too, but the EBC will really allow the pastor to get to the heart of the biblical message. When Ray Dillard and I wrote that textbook, and in the revision as well, we were concerned to cover three basic areas for each biblical book that we thought was really important for a student to enter into a serious study of the book, and that's historical background, the literary style and structure, and the theological message. Now, most introductions will talk about the historical background, who wrote it, and so forth. But few of them really get into the literary strategy of the book in the way that we do. And also in terms of the theological message, which we think is very important for beginning students to have a sense of as they study the book. And not only that, we have a section at the end of each book that talks about approaching the New Testament. That is, how does this book relate to the New Testament message? And we think that's extremely important for seminarians and for pastors to understand as they prepare to teach and preach the text. We wrote the introduction in the late 80s, early 90s, when Ray Dillard and I both taught together at Westminster Theological Seminary. And it came out originally in 1984, and he died, my good friend Ray, died at the age of 49, about 6 months before it actually came out. So that was a sad aspect of its publication, but it was well received. So in 2006, I revised the whole introduction, and I updated all the discussions. If there were new areas of scholarly interest, say like the editing of the Psalms or the editing of Proverbs, I developed a new discussion in those chapters, as well as interacting with minimalism, which is, a group of more radical Old Testament scholars when it comes to the history of Israel. So interacting with new discussions over the 10 plus years since the introduction originally came out, and of course interacting with all the most recent scholarship on each of the biblical books. There are a long line of introductions, and ours is definitely within the evangelical camp because our own conclusions about the biblical books are consistent with evangelical conclusions about the books. Not that there might not be one or two areas that people might be provoked to think in a new direction. The point is that Ray and I, while we are evangelical, believe that you can learn from critical scholarship and you need to interact with critical scholarship. So we try to make ourselves as conversant with critical scholarship as we can and interact with that in the introduction as well. So I think we do interact with the most current scholarly opinions on the subject without burdening the introduction with a lot of footnotes or a lot of detailed interaction with particular scholars. We don't feel like we have to name every scholar as we're writing our introduction because we want the student to read smoothly through the material. And sometimes if something is overly documented, you spend all the time just kind of reading footnotes.